Now we have Rob and his upcoming short movie. Applause, everyone.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Suzanne, for letting me come here and pitch this. This is a feature film, by the way. I'm sorry with the miscommunication. This is a feature film that I'm developing.
Oh, my apologies.
No, it's totally fine.
Okay.
So this is a feature film that I'm developing, planning to film here in Germany. And just to before I get started, the film is about it's about an immigrant, and I'm pretty sure everybody in here has been an immigrant at some point in some country that they went to and was working. And as an immigrant, when you go into places, you do have a little bit of fear. Even if the country, everybody's nice, and they speak your mother tongue, you still have a little bit of fear because you are an outsider in their world, and you're learning to assimilate to the culture and really experience the culture and try to be a good member of that society as an outsider. And that's the way I've always been taught. My mom always taught me, you go to any country, any place, anyone's house, you conduct yourself in a certain way so you will be welcomed back and also show a great, give a great experience to these people that you meet. Because in some places I have been somebody's first American person that they met. They only had television. And afterwards, they're like, okay, Americans, they're not really assholes. Some of them are actually cool. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. Okay, so the name of this is a working title. I'm pretty sure whoever buys the film or the studio is going to tell me I have to change the name, but it's cool. This is just for all intents and purposes. This is what it is. So the name of this film is called Die Winterkinder, and everybody. I'm pretty sure everybody speaks German or a little bit. That the Winter Children, and so I'm going to go to the first slide. So log line here. An African Muslim man struggling with his faith after traumatic events immigrates to Germany to start over, but his plans are interrupted by Turkish gangsters, German political extremists, and evil paranormal forces, or ghosts. Is it Geist? That's how you say it? Ghost in Deutsch?
Geist.
Geist. Okay. And I'll have it up here so you guys can look at it, but I'm gonna be paraphrasing and going through it just so I don't read it all off to you. Okay, so an African Muslim migrant, his name is Ahmad. He's struggling with his faith. A traumatic event happened to him back in his homeland of Kenya, and he left Kenya to come to Germany to start all over again. Now, I haven't placed this happening in any particular German city or town because I didn't want to, like point the lens at this town and say, okay, this is happening here. That's wrong. I just wanted to make it to any town, so any place that you are going to. So when he comes to town, one of his old college friends is allowing him to stay with him. His name is Jabari. Jabari is an idiot. And Jabari also has a problem with gambling. And so what happens is that they go to a pool hall and they're playing pool. And Jabari, his friend, is winning. And some guys have been watching him beat everybody in pool the whole night. And he's like, okay, I see that you're playing for little amounts of money. Let's play for a bigger amount of money. And, Jabari's friend Ahmad tells him, no, we don't need to do this. Let's just get out of here. These guys have, bigger money and they look kind of dangerous. I don't think we should mess around with these people. But Jabari and his ego will not die. So Ahmad agrees to go ahead and hang around with him while he's playing pool. And so after this, as you can see up here, he's approached by 3 German men. What happens is that Ahmad and Jabari are playing pool. They go to a high bet, 5,000 euros. Jabari loses the bet. He loses the game of pool. But instead of paying these guys, he takes the money and he runs. And so when he does this, Ahmad, being his friend, runs with him. He doesn't know what's going on. This is a brand new country to him. He doesn't know anything. So he just runs out with him. When he runs out into the parking lot, he hides from the guys that are chasing him. The whole time inside of this parking lot, there have been some men that have been sitting in a van, and what they do is that they don't like foreigners coming into their country, regardless of whatever country they're from, Africa, U.S., England. They don't like that, and this isn't just for these Germans. This has happened in every country I've ever been into in my life. You're going to meet some people who do not like foreigners. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter how cool you are, or nice. They don't like it. It's change, and that's one thing I want to talk about with this film is people reacting to change. Not everybody reacts to it greatly, as we were talking about in the pitch that we were working with earlier about AI. AI is a change, and people are reacting to that change. Some people will react in a good way. Some people will react in a bad way. Some people will have fear. Some people will have bravery. Um, but back to my film. These German men that are sitting in the car, what they're doing, they're waiting to catch some drunk foreigners out having a good time. And what they do is they take them and they're never seen again. And so these German men see this Ahmad running through the parking lot, and they decide to intervene. They decide to hide him from the guys that are chasing him. Now, once Ahmad gets inside the van, he has a little conversation with the gentleman. How were you? Why are you guys here? I'm so happy that you're here. You saved me, but why were you here? And the German men tell him, oh, well, we work in the film industry. And what we were doing, we were finishing working for the day. And after work, we decided to grab a beer on the way home. And from there, they tell him, okay, hey, we work in the film industry, but we don't really want to work in the film industry just as workers anymore. What we want to do, we've been working on our own television show, a reality television show about ghosts in Germany. And so the reality TV show that they pitched him is that they have different people go to different haunted forests around Germany and stay the night there. And they set up a camera and they record the person's reactions and if they find any paranormal activity happening. The only thing is that this is a lie. Ahmad believes every word what they're saying. He's, like I said, he's a fish out of water. He's in a new country. He has this drama of a situation with them. And so he's forced to trust these guys. And they try to get him to become part of the reality TV show. And what Ahmad tells him, he said, hey, I'm from Africa. We have way scarier ghosts and legends than anything that you could ever tell me here in Germany. And what happens is that when he says that to them, it makes them angry. And they take the standpoint of, okay, hey, we're telling you about our country, what we have going on, and you totally dismissed it. You totally dismissed it. How could you do that? And Ahmad, being the nice person he is, he retracts what he says a little bit. Uh, but he still stands firm on the fact that he doesn't believe in ghosts and he's not scared of that. And so they continue the conversation. And as they're in the vehicle, they start asking him more about who are the guys that you were running from. And the German guys, they see that he's very tense and they take advantage of the situation. They say, oh, the guy that's chasing you, we know who he is. He's actually the leader of a local gang here. And chances are, if you are back on the streets tonight, this local gang is going to find you. So what we propose is dropping you off at a train station in another city, maybe 10, 15 kilometers away. And Ahmad agrees to that. He just wants to get out of the city away from these guys that are chasing him. And while they're in the vehicle, once they arrive at the train station, they tell him, hey, once again, we want to offer you this thing. We know that you need money. We know that you ran out on paying the bet. So what we will offer to you is 5,000 euros right now just to go. And when you get there, when you get there and you survive tonight, we'll give you an additional 10,000 euros. And that's more than enough that you need to pay the guys off. And they go to this next place and they explain the story of the Winterkinder. Now, just to give you guys a quick version of it, back the legend of the Winterkinder in this particular part of Germany, an unnamed part of Germany. Back in 1500s, late 1500s, 1600s, there was a small German village. And in this village, there were a set of two teenage twin boys who went playing out in the forest in the wintertime. and they never came back home. And all the villagers got together and they searched the entire forest looking for these kids, and they could not find them. And so a few weeks later, a new person had moved into the village, and he was a Moor. He was originally from Spain, Arab background. And he goes out into the forest weeks later and he's hunting. And what he's doing, he's hunting for fur. So he would hunt like foxes and stuff like that. So what happens is the Moor finds these two children dead in their underwear. And so what the Moor does, he runs right back to the village and say, "Hey guys, I found these children." The village gets together. They say, "Okay, let's go find the children." They go back out to find the children, but the children have now disappeared. Now that the children have disappeared, all the eyes point towards the Moor, the foreigner, who said he found these children, but now the children aren't here anymore. An argument happens, and they end up letting it go, and they go back into their regular lives. About a week later, the father of the children, one night drinking way too much, he gets the other villagers and they have a conversation and they say, "Hey, we think this guy had something to do with this." They go over to his house at nighttime while he's sleeping. The Moor's fatal mistake was that he left his door open. When he left his door open, the people just walked right in. They walked right in his house, woke him up, they beat him up, they stripped him down into his underwear, and they made him walk off into the woods in wintertime at gunpoint. And the Moor was never seen again. And since that day, there's been a legend that if you live near this forest in wintertime, and if you leave your windows or doors unlocked, these paranormal creatures will come into your house and you'll never be seen again. And so that's the story that they tell Ahmad before he goes out into the forest. Now, Ahmad goes out into the forest, and when he goes out into the forest, then the real conversation starts to happen between the German men. And they say, "Okay, hey, we're going to let him go out into the forest, 45 minutes an hour, we'll go out to the forest, we'll kill him, and we'll bring him back to the apartment." And then from there, there's some other stuff that I don't want to tell you because you have to watch the movie and see what happens. But I'm going to go ahead and go back into the picture. So, like I said, I don't want to tell you the ending, so I'll go to the pitch. What begins as a strange but manageable job quickly unravels. Cut out from the outside world, Ahmad realizes the situation has been carefully orchestrated. The men are not filmmakers. They do not work in TV. They are a predator. The production is a controlled setup designed to isolate, manipulate, and ultimately eliminate Ahmad. And I'll continue on the synopsis just so you can see. As the night progresses, control begins to shift. The environment grows increasingly disoriented. Unexplained elements begin to surface, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The line between psychological manipulation and something else more elusive starts to blur. So I'll give you just a little bit more of what happens when they're in the forest. So the men tell Ahmad this grand lie. It's a lie. But when they get out into the forest, they realize that it's actually haunted. And they go from being the predators to now working with Ahmad to try to figure out how the hell they can get out of this forest being chased by these ghosts. But in the end, Devintikinde reveals the chilling truth. The greatest danger may not be the unknown, but the systems of fear, belief, and power that people willingly uphold. And one thing I said on the opening side is that control is an illusion. A lot of us humans, we think we are in control. We are in control of certain things. But when it comes to life and death, we are not. I could walk outside right now and drop dead. I have no control over that. But we spend our lives doing all these things thinking we're in control when we're really not. And that's one thing I wanted to express in this. The people the people who are in charge think they're in control, but they are not. They actually are now part of the game. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to quickly go through these, but I just want to talk about the genre and the tone. It's a psychological thriller that gradually evolves into a psychological horror. It's grounded in realism before descending into something far more unsettling and ambiguous. The film begins with a controlled, almost documentary-like tone, reflecting a world shaped by systems, order, and illusion of safety. Now think about it, from someone like Ahmad, he came from a traumatic place, moving to a place that he assumed was safer. He thought he was going into a country that is very safe, and Germany is very safe. You can walk around and do whatever. But for Ahmad, it changes very quickly. And this is a little bit of me also, traveling to different places. You go to a certain place and you just, oh my God, this is a beautiful country. And then something happens. It's like, okay, wait a minute. It's just like mine. Every country is the same. It's just different levels of different things happen. Everybody has the same problems. And so, to go back to this, the tone is cold, restricted, and deeply atmospheric, relying on slow building tension rather than shocks. Because with a lot of horror films that I've seen, especially the American ones, they're all built around one big jump scare. And my favorite types of horror films are European horror films, especially the Germans and the Austrians. The Austrians have really messed up horror films, and I love it. Like Michael Haneke, there's so many people I could talk about. But yeah, that's my vision for making this film. I want to make a film that has you can see there's an American having his hands in it, but I want it to be a very much European horror film, because European horror films and Asian horror films are the scariest films I've ever seen. American horror films is just like a joke, but a European horror film, you're gonna think about that for years. I will say, like, Europeans, the Germans and Austrians, like, they don't do horror that much, but when they do, it is something that sticks in the back of your brain, and it's like, wow. And so that's my vision for this film. And so the themes, real quick, themes of xenophobia, exploitation, create an underlying human horror, which ultimately merges with incomprehensible presence, blurring the line between reality and unknown. And that's what I want. I want people to think about this film when they go back home. And I want people to really wonder, like, what's going on in the films. Because the best horror films are the ones that you have to process. If you can come outside of a horror film saying, okay, I know what happened, you just had a show. But if you go out of a horror film and you're still thinking, like, whoa, what does this mean? What does that mean? That's really messed up. And it sticks with you. I've done my job as a filmmaker. Because as a filmmaker, I think whether we do fact or fiction, narrative or documentary, we should be making people think just a little bit. Not making them think the entire time, but just a little bit. I'll go to the next slide. So I want to introduce the characters real quick. This is Ahmad Salim. He's a Kenyan Muslim man in his early 30s. He comes from Kenya after his wife has a miscarriage. His wife has a miscarriage, and that ultimately breaks up the family. And what happens after that? Ahmad kind of commits a crime out of revenge and leaves the country. The next slide is Jabari. Jabari is his friend. They've been friends since college. Jabari's always been betting and making money from doing different kinds of things like that, and that's his addiction. And he drags other people into it. Next slide. This is Udo Schmidt. He's a German man in his mid-60s. Also, real quick, some of you guys may recognize some of these actors, especially this guy. But yeah, I wanted to talk about these guys. So,
is he in 60s?
Really? I mean, no, he's like 50. Ralph Fielman is like, I think he's like around 55, 59. I think he's like almost 60. I mean, makeup, we can make him look 60. It's fine. But so here's one thing I really, yeah, he does, right? Here's one thing I want to talk about before I start talking about the bad guys, because especially in films that I've seen, a lot of films when they involve anything with Germans, they just make them, if they're bad guys or they're racist, they make them racist for the sake of being racist, and that's wrong. You cannot make just a racist character. You have to give some depth behind it. Think about, I'll give you an example of in Inglourious Basterds, Colonel Hans Landa. He himself was not a bad guy. He did not see himself as a bad guy. He saw himself as a person doing his job. But the way that he had, no remorse at all for doing his job, that's what makes him even more evil. Just to think about it, in Inglourious Basterds, he's looking for Jewish people in someone's home, and he shows up with documents just checking off it. That's evil. Like, when you look at life like a business, that's evil. And so with these characters, Udo, he is, like it says here, he's defined by nostalgia. He clings to an idealized version of Germany he grew up in, a version he believes has been lost. In his eyes, modern day Germany has been fundamentally altered and not for the better. And that's what I want to go with this when I want to talk about this character. For me, writing this, he was one of the most complex characters because for him, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. The fact is that there are Germans and there are non-Germans. And, we see that in every country you go to. Even in my home country of America, there are Americans and there are non-Americans. And ask anybody who's went through customs, they will tell you, regardless of where they're from, they get the non-American treatment. And one thing I've noticed for myself, dealing with racist people that I've met in my life, a lot of them are not inherently evil. There is some ideal that they had from back in the day that they feel that there's change, and they are reacting to that change, and they don't like it. And so that's what I wanted to emphasize with these characters who are the bad guy, because I've seen a lot of cinema, especially American cinema. We all just portray Germans as evil people, and that's not true. With this person, his methods are very evil, but his idea behind it is it's an innocent. It's like, okay, this is not the country I grew up in, and I do not like what I'm seeing. I'll go to the next slide. This is Ralph. You may recognize this guy too. He has a TV show that I watched a few episodes of, and it's hilarious, where he's like a cop that was like frozen in time. But anyway, the same thing with Ralph. Ralph is another person who, the reason why he is the way he is because something happened to him. And for him, and this isn't here, it is here. As an adult, his worldview hardened into something more extreme following the death of a close friend in an accident involving an undocumented immigrant. So you have an undocumented immigrant driving a car, accidentally kills his friend. That is what turns him radical. And before then, there was never any hatred. It's just there's an event that happened, and the reason why his friend is not here anymore is because somebody who was not from my country that killed him. And if that person wouldn't have been here in the first place, my friend would still be alive. And that's the reason why he's the way he is. And so once again, I just want to give context on these characters and not just these random racist people. And I will say this, every evil that happens in this world has an origin story. Every one of them. Even you think about serial killers that have been, throughout the years. All of them have an evil origin story. It normally involves a parent or a very violent act that they saw when they were a child, and it kept going. That's just how it goes. The next person, Lars, you may recognize him also. Lars is a special character. Lars is what happens when you have a generation of young guys who grow up hearing stories of how it used to be. And they see their older brothers and they want to be just like them. He's the youngest one in the group. Everybody in the group is 60s and 40s, and he's in his 20s. And what he wants to do, he wants to play his part in making Germany the way it was, even though he never grew up in that. And that's another thing I want to explore also. Evil, and especially when it comes to xenophobia and racism, this is a thing that is taught. You do not come out of a womb thinking like that. This has to be taught. It's often taught by a toxic uncle, aunt, friend, one of your parents' friends that were saying something that you shouldn't have been hearing. And that's what he wants. That's the reason why he's the way he is. But also, one more thing I want to touch on before I go to the next slide is that how you have a generation of younger men who feel like they don't have any more heroes. Their heroes are now bad guys. And when you have somebody like him who's trying to fit in and who is hearing all these stories about things used to be, some people push away from it, some people gravitate to it, and he's one of the ones that gravitates to it. I'll go to the next slide here. Oh, and before I switch away, Lars has largely formed his worldview through the online echo chambers and inherited narratives, developing a deep attachment to a version of Germany he never personally experienced. And here are my comparables. The Grudge, The Ritual, The Ring. I don't know if you guys have seen these films, but I highly recommend all three of them. They're really great. The Lodge, Paranormal Activity, and Antichrist. I'm going to go back to these slides. So these first slides, they all involve some kind of paranormal entity and psychological stuff happening. These slides are more of the psychological also. And then the Paranormal Activity, obviously, is ghosts, as we all know if we've seen this film. I picked these 6 films because the way they look, the story that they have, and all of them, all the films that I have here, all of these films, they start because of some trauma that happened. The Grudge, a murder and unreleased trauma. The Ritual, trauma to a friend dying and going on a trip. The Ring, trauma of someone years ago being killed for no reason. The Lodge, trauma of a person who comes out of a psychotic cult who's now thrown into a situation where people are taking advantage of the psychological issues. Paranormal Activity, same thing. Antichrist, same thing. Loss of a child and now going to a psychological, horror. And this is you may recognize this person. This is me. And so I'll just read to you real quick my writer's director statement for this. So all my life, I've been an observer. As an observer, you watch the world around you. And more than anything, you watch human behavior, not just individual behavior, but the behavior of people within groups. You notice how groups of people react to other groups. Some groups regard themselves as superior to others, and any group can fall victim to this way of thinking. Any group. And often become distrustful of those attempting to integrate into those groups. You can go back to like grade school when you have the cool kids and you're the new outsider coming in and it's like, the fact that people do this never intrigued me. It was the why they did. The stories we tell ourselves, the codes, the cultures, and customs that define each group. Although we are the same species, we carry ideological insecurity. That word always gave us idiosyncrasies that are often very familiar. Yet we still allow these things to divide us. As humans, we create religious beliefs and cultivate them over hundreds of years, thousands of years. Some people remain tethered to their religion their entire lives, and some sever their connection to it at some point. Others decide to deconstruct their beliefs and reconstruct them later again in life. Once again, the fact that people do this never intrigued me. It was always the why that did. One last thing I've noticed in my years as an observer is the unexplained, a light in the sky, a sound in the dark, a feeling you experience when you walk into certain places. In those moments, you realize that all the information you gathered throughout the years of observation means very little because some things are simply unexplainable. As an adept filmmaker makes films about what they know and what intrigues them. I've been a part of both an unwelcoming group and also an unwelcome one. So I felt compelled to tell the story about malice on one side and the anguish on the other. I myself have practiced several religions and later severed my connection to them. So I felt compelled to explore that journey within the story. And I've witnessed things that defy explanation, moments that keep you awake at night searching for answers only to find none. Because of that, I felt compelled to explore the unexplainable and how people react to it. My artistic choices combined with my storytelling style and focus on the human element aim to take audiences on a journey that will continue to be discussed long after the film is ended. The final impact on this film. Die Winterkinder is designed to leave a lasting psychological and emotional impact on its audience, extending far beyond the final frame. The film challenges viewers to question the nature of control, perception, and truth, revealing how easily reality can be shaped by fear, power, and belief systems. Through Ahmad's journey, the story exposes the vulnerability of individuals placed in unfamiliar environments, highlighting the tension between identity, faith, and survival. At its core, the film forces its audience to confront an unsettling idea that the greatest threats are not always supernatural, but often rooted in human behavior, prejudice, manipulation, and the desire for dominance. As the narrative unfolds, the boundaries between psychological control and the explainable begin to dissolve, leaving viewers in a state of ambiguity where certainty no longer exists. Ultimately, The Winterkinder aims to provoke discussion and reflection. It is not a film that provides clear answers, but one that lingers, encouraging audience to question what they believe, what they fear, and how easily both can be influenced. The lasting impact lies in its ability to unsettle the mind, making viewers reconsider whether control was ever real or merely an illusion shaped by forces both seen and unseen. And thank you for listening. Thank you for giving your attention on this. Yeah, once again, this story for me is it's a very personal story for me. Not that I've met Turkish gangsters or German far right political extremists. Honestly, I've never seen one in real life. I've only seen it on TV. I'm pretty sure they're out there, but I've never seen it. But it's my experiences coming into a foreign country. I've been to several foreign countries in my life. I was in the military for 6 years, so I traveled all around this place, and I've got the looks of like, okay, what does this guy do? I've got those looks, but that's just how it goes. And I want to explore, really, for me, moving to Germany, and moving to a city I've never lived in. It is a fish out of water story for me. But yeah, I wanted to explore these types of things, but I also wanted to explore the human condition and how everybody that does bad things or has, views that you may view as crazy, there's something that led them to that point. The person outside saying, leave foreigners, in every country, the person that's doing crime to innocent people on the street, something happened to that person. And I want to explore that. Even with the character who leaves his country to go to start off to a new country, something happened to that character, and that is why they're there. And yeah, thank you once again for giving me your time for this.
Applause, everyone. I would say if you share with us, if you have any question, wait a little bit. I have one. What are you looking currently for?
What am I?
What for this movie? What are you currently looking for?
The money. No, so I have some. I've raised some funds for the film back in the States. It's not what I need to do it, but I mean, if I cut some scenes, I can make it happen. But I feel like the more money you get, the better film that you can make. And as of right now, like I said, I've raised some funds in the States before I even moved to Germany. I worked with some of my friends and sourced out some funding, plus my own funding. And since I've arrived to Germany, I have met some people that have been very interested in the project. And as of today, I have a producer attached. We haven't started working on it yet because I have a visa appointment on Monday. And so once the visa appointment is finished, then I can legally start working here. But I do have a producer attached right now who's interested in and, working with me to get funds. But once again, we can't start anything until the German government tells me, yes, I can stay.
Well, wish you success. Is anyone having question? Okay, good. Thank you once again. And the number, I am curious to know the number of the budget. You know it?
Yes. I'll take this.
Yes.
So my plan for this film was to shoot it as a low budget film. So my goal was 100K and under. And so my plan with films, every time I make a film, is to write it in a cheap way. So whenever you film it, if you get extra money, you can only elevate. So you put yourself into a box, to be forced to be creative for a certain amount of money. But when you get more money, then you can elevate the film. So for me, I believe this film could be done for 100K or less. As far as I did a potential breakdown of shooting days. And so the potential for this is 17 days or less. It primarily takes place inside of the forest. And there's a scene in the pool hall, there's a scene in a van and a car, and a few interiors, but the bulk of this film takes place in the forest. And another thing I want to do when I talk about the budget is to shoot it practically. So as far as like CGI and stuff like that, I want to stay away from that. I want to go old school Hollywood and go ahead and do hair and makeup and really use the filmmaking tools I have available, framing, camera angles and editing to make this thing, even more scary. Because once again, to go back to German and Austrian films, their horror films, even their monsters, are very practical. It's like not a lot of CGI. It's like actual horrifying creatures that someone created with hair and makeup. And so that's what I wanted to go for with that.
Okay. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Now, applause. Good.